Welcome back. Tonight we're stepping into the cold. Not a modern cold you can escape with a thermostat. The real cold. The kind your ancestors faced with nothing but their bodies and their wits. Right now, if the temperature dropped 40 degrees and stayed there for 6 months, you'd probably die within days. Your ancestors didn't just survive that. They did it for tens of thousands of years. In some of the harshest ice age winters this planet has ever produced. How is that possible? The real answer isn't about toughness. It's about a handful of very specific inventions, most of which you've never once thought about, that quietly rewired what a human body could survive. Here's the first one, and it's older than you'd expect. An anthropologist named Richard Wrangham has spent decades studying the role fire played in human evolution. His research points to something striking. Controlled fire wasn't just a convenience early humans picked up along the way. It may have been a precondition for surviving cold climates at all. Fire did more than provide warmth. It let humans cook food, which unlocked far more calories from the same amount of meat and plants than eating them raw. In brutal cold, calories are survival. Your body burns enormous energy just maintaining its core temperature. Without an efficient way to extract calories from food, that math simply doesn't work through a long winter. Fire also extended the day. Humans could stay active, alert, and social for hours after sunset. Instead of being forced into cold, vulnerable darkness the moment the sun disappeared. Groups huddled around a shared flame weren't just warm. They were protected, fed, and connected, all from one source. But fire alone doesn't explain how humans moved into truly frigid environments. For that, you need something that sounds almost too simple to matter. Clothing. An archaeologist named Ian Gilligan has spent years studying when and how clothing actually began, using an unusual kind of evidence. Not the clothing itself, which rarely survives thousands of years, but indirect clues, tools used for scraping hides, bone needles fine enough to sew tightly fitted garments, even genetic data from body lice, a parasite that only thrives in the folds of worn clothing, which lets researchers estimate roughly how long ago humans started regularly wearing it. Gilligan's research suggests something counterintuitive. Simple draped animal skins, thrown over the shoulders like a cloak, appeared quite early, but tailored, fitted clothing, sewn tightly enough to trap warm air against the skin and block wind, seems to show up specifically during the coldest phases of the last ice age. In other words, clothing wasn't just a cultural preference. It was an engineering response to a survival problem, refined exactly when the problem became most severe. Loose skins keep you somewhat warmer. Tightly sewn, layered garments, with separate coverings for hands and feet, are a completely different technology. One that effectively let humans carry a portable, wearable microclimate wherever they went. This is the part that should genuinely surprise you. A fitted fur parka with sealed seams can trap a layer of warm air so effectively that the person wearing it experiences something close to a mild climate, even while standing in air cold enough to cause frostbite in exposed skin within minutes. Humans didn't out-evolve the cold through biology alone. They out-engineered it, one stitch seam at a time. But there's a third piece to this puzzle, and it's written directly into some of our ancestors' DNA. A geneticist named Svana Pabo, who later won a Nobel Prize for his work sequencing ancient genomes, helped uncover something remarkable about Neanderthals, a closely related human species that thrived in cold European and Asian environments for hundreds of thousands of years. Pabo's research revealed that modern humans outside Africa carry small, but measurable amounts of Neanderthal DNA, inherited through interbreeding tens of thousands of years ago. Some of the Neanderthal-derived genes that persist in modern human populations today are linked to traits like skin pigmentation, immune response, and, notably, how the body regulates fat storage and responds to cold. Neanderthals had lived in harsh cold climates for an enormous span of time before modern humans arrived in those same regions. When the two populations interbred, some of those cold-adapted genetic variants passed into the modern human gene pool. This doesn't mean any single gene single-handedly made humans cold-proof. Biology is rarely that tidy, but it does mean that when your ancestors moved into brutally cold territory, They weren't facing that challenge with a blank genetic slate. In some populations, they carried a small, inherited head start, borrowed from a species that had already spent hundreds of millennia learning how to survive exactly this. So put these three pieces together, and a very different picture of Ice Age survival starts to emerge. Fire that unlocked enough calories to fuel a body fighting constant heat loss. Clothing engineered specifically to trap warmth against the skin as if wearing a personal, portable climate. And genetic inheritance, quietly passed down from a cold-hardened relative species, giving certain populations a subtle biological edge. None of these three things alone would have been enough. A fire without warm clothing still leaves you exposed the moment you step away from it. Warm clothing without enough calories from cooked food still leaves your body running on empty. And genetic cold tolerance, without either of those first two, would have only bought a little extra time. Not survival across generations. It was the combination, fire, clothing, and biology, layered together, that let humans do something almost no other primate on Earth has ever managed. Live, indefinitely, in environments cold enough to kill an unprotected human body in a matter of hours. Which brings us back to you, sitting somewhere warm right now, probably not thinking about any of this at all. Every time you put on a coat, you're using a piece of technology whose roots stretch back to the depths of the last ice age. Every time you eat a cooked meal, you're relying on a calorie extraction trick your ancestors discovered was the difference between life and death in the cold. And depending on your ancestry, there's a real chance. A small, quiet inheritance from an entirely different human species is still sitting somewhere in your genome. A distant echo of exactly the problem this video started with. You don't have to fight the Ice Age anymore. But the tools that got your ancestors through it never really left. They just got quieter, more comfortable, and easy to forget. So the next time you zip up a jacket without thinking twice about it, remember what that simple motion actually represents. It's not just fabric. It's tens of thousands of years of humans, slowly, stubbornly, brilliantly figuring out how not to freeze. If this changed the way you think about something as ordinary as putting on a coat, hit like and subscribe for more. And let me know in the comments what you think your ancestors' winters actually looked like. See you in the next one.